welcome to Let's Talk AppSecOps. My name is Mark Lambert, VP of Products here at ArmorCode, and I'm joined by 𝗙ecie 𝗹𝗹𝗄, who is still my good friend, I think. All right, let's jump straight into it. Let's talk about ownership. One of those things of like, hey, vulnerabilities come in, findings coming in. What do I do with it?
Yeah, who owns it? And it's ownership instead of stewardship, right? So,
ooh, yeah. All
it's
right.
going to be my responsibility.
So kick it off. Let's start the conversation.
So I've had conversations before with prospects and with customers that talk about, I've got a lot of data coming in here with vulnerabilities, but I'm not sure who they belong to. Right? So understanding the fundamental concept of who owns this, right? As a whole, I get it. It's an organization responsibility. But you and I both know that being direct reports at some point in our life, we had something we needed to go do. So having that responsibility of I need to go remediate this is very important for the last mile of remediation. So now, how do we find it? Can ArmorCode really help? I think we can. With that, I'll softball pitch it to you.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Yeah, I think, look, when you've got ownership, there's a couple of things that come into play, right? You have asset discovery, which is probably the first thing, right? What things do I have? And there are different tools that you can use for discovery in the market. And I think, there's a lot of interesting technology around scanning infrastructure, about scanning GitHub repositories and things like that. And there's a lot of capability that that I've seen, within ArmorCode, obviously showing kind of like what assets are actually being used and pulling out that information based upon the data that we're ingesting.
Sure.
Now, we then need to assign that to somebody to resolve, and ownership. You have different responsibilities for a software asset, right?
Sure.
We have product owners, engineering owners, security owners, and
business owners.
And business owners. You have to be able to align, security champions, maybe if we're using a security champion program, and being able to understand that scope of ownership around an asset and being able to assign responsibility for different stages of the life cycle for the finding. So one thing that interestingly comes up is you can't just, you have to associate that with a person, otherwise it won't get done, right?
Orphan vulnerabilities. Yes, that right there.
Right, because it's like, okay, I'm going to assign it to Bob, right? And like, okay, no, you need to know that that's Bob Smith. Here's his email address. Here's his Slack ID. Here's the channel that we should be watching in Slack, and communicate. Just doing random assignments, it just doesn't work, because ultimately the person needs the workload coming to them. They need it assigned as a ticket in Jira. So it's not just an arbitrary ownership, it's an ownership to an individual or a team.
Or a team.
You can own a team, and then it goes to the Jira board, they pick it off, right? But it has to go somewhere. It can't just be an arbitrary bucket. Otherwise you'll get visibility but no remediation.
So kind of jumping on that exact thing right there, right? I've talked about this before when I worked at Tipping Point in 2009. The whole team started out, I was just a tier 2 engineer when I first got there. It was during this time period during the holidays, right? And what ended up happening is everybody went home for those holidays, and it was me, the new guy, and another guy that had to babysit me. And so now this whole situation is happening where somebody picks up the phone in a random day on a holiday, and they're like, yeah, I need help with my Tipping Point IPS. And I'm like, I was good at what I did, so I was able to ask questions and go through there, but there was no concept of who owned this particular problem. And what we're talking about right now is the vulnerability is a problem. We need to make sure that we're sending it to the proper location, aka the team. And then from there, we're able to absolve ourselves from responsibility because now we should have a security champion there or a manager, somebody that can distribute the workload. And that's what we did at Tipping Point. We had a round robin way of taking these phone calls that would come in, and the phone knew it was a PBX system. It went through and it said, hey, Luis is up next. Boom, goes to him. And then it would come in if it was an email and they were like, hey, Luis is next. And boom, it would give it to Luis. But that was still a role that had to be mitigated by the manager.
Mm-hmm.
And if that person wasn't there to be able to, send it out, then it wouldn't get there. Well, we do that at ArmorCode, and we can do that in an automated fashion, being able to send it to the right Jira board. So maybe it doesn't need to go to one person. Maybe it needs to go to that team, like you said before.
Yeah.
And then move away. So there's philosophical differences, but I think you understand that with ArmorCode, we're able to get that workflow in a very quick and concise manner so that we can get to the right hands.
Yeah, and actually, so there's something you just said that I'm gonna just like pull back a little bit. You said like give it and put your hands off. There's a thing that you can't do though. You can't just pull your hands off and go, it's their problem. No, you need to be trust but verify, right? Make sure that it's moving forward. Monitor the SLAs. Let the team know when the due date is coming up and say, guys, you're gonna be out of compliance. So the role of security in today's world is to get it routed quickly, because we need to make sure that we have enough time to perform the remediation, but then it's to monitor ongoing and make sure that we're actually in compliance with our internal policies, which we've probably signed up for some kind of regulatory policy associated with that as well. So, we need to make sure we're in compliance and able to track that.
And then that should be able to come back in an automated fashion so that we can say, hey, is this right? Are we in compliance? Are we out of compliance? Do we need to talk to somebody? Do we need to escalate it up so that we can get it remediated in the time period that we know that we have internally? Right. All those conversations are great. But how do you do that if you don't have a tool to help you do that? Manual.
And how do you do it if you have 5 to 10 different tools that are managing SaaS, SEA, infrastructure, cloud, container, and you've got all of these different tools? How do you now solidify communication of that so that you're going to set up ownership in every one of those? I think this is the key for me. We talk about kind of the stages, right? So visibility first, application security posture management, workflow, unified vulnerability management. That is it. Ownership is key there. And well-defined ownership gives you the ability to automate, which is that third step.
Yeah, and that well-defined, that's where people and companies are having a problem today, because they're coming to us and they're saying, I don't have a well-defined process.
Don't have a place to even document it.
Or, right? Yeah, exactly. Or a place to actually save this and say, if so-and-so is no longer in that department, who replaced so-and-so?
Exactly. Being able to say, hey, Bob just won the lottery. He's out. Where's Bob critical and where's his responsibilities?
Right.
So that we can greatly manage that. So I think this is, I'm glad that we talked about this, because I think it is a key element to making sure that you can improve your process and just evolve and get to the point where we all want to be, which is safe and secure. So with that being said, I think this is a wrap. I think we went a little longer than normal. Luis, thank you as always. Thanks everybody for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode.
See you guys.